Good morning. Welcome to Decker's Nursery. We're around the end of March. We've just received a lot of new nursery material, and it prompted me to put this little segment together for you. A lot of people are thinking, hey, I want to get out, I want to start planting, whether you're doing it yourself or you need assistance on the planting. I wanted to talk about some of the really popular, some of my favorite evergreens that have multiple attributes for new planting areas. Whether you're planting in front of the house, like perhaps your foundation plantings have become overgrown, you took them out and now you want to replace, or you may be creating a new garden. Whenever you're creating a new garden, it's a really good idea, whether it's going to be a perennial garden or just a balanced bed full of shrubs. You always want to have a combination of evergreens and flowering plants, okay? And they may be deciduous, or they may be flowering evergreens, or they may be perennials. But the evergreens are the plants that anchor your garden. They're going to give you 4 seasons of interest, so that in the winter, the garden still has some life, even though the adjacent plant may be void of leaves, or the perennials may have been cut back to the ground. The evergreens are still going to perform. So these arrived yesterday, and they just happen to be some of my favorites, so I wanted to share them with you briefly. I'm going to ask Matt to get a close-up on the Andromeda, and hopefully you can smell the fragrance that I'm getting right now. I know you can't, but it's really, really fragrant. And they produce flowers each year. Very reliable flowering plant in April, and it's really an indicator of spring. It goes really hand in hand with the forsythia as an indicator. Okay, so Andromedas have been expanded a lot, and I use a couple of different varieties because they are dwarf and or compact varieties. Okay, so all 3 of these plants are Andromeda. We have the silver flame, so it's I really like the variegation on the foliage. It gives you some other contrast against green plants. Still has the flowers, still has the fragrance. This will get like 3 or 4 foot. So in a foundation planting, that may be great. If you have a larger open area, this will still make a substantial statement in the garden. If you have room for a large androm, now Andromedas are in the same family with rhododendron. They're an ericaceous plant. So rhododendron, azalea, mountain laurel, leucothoe. Andromedas is one of those staples. So it just happens to bloom earlier in the spring. But this will get, 6, 8, 10 foot I've seen. And you'll see these occasionally walking through the woods where one got seeded or naturalized itself. But this is a great plant to use. The cavatine is probably one of our most popular foundation plantings. This will mature at like 2.5 feet and get about the same width, about 2.5, 3 feet. So I use them the same way as I use the Japanese hollies. Okay, now this is a soft touch Japanese holly, has beautiful soft texture, very elegant plant. And it doesn't grow to 5 or 6 feet. So this will get like, 2.5, 3 feet. And nice thing about all the Japanese hollies, you can prune them. They're conducive to pruning. So you can kind of contain them if necessary. Couldn't go through this without mentioning Sarcocoa. So Sarcocoa is not a really, it's not a plant that people know or seek out. It is not a native. It's also called sweet box because these little dainty flowers have a really powerful fragrance. And it also is something that blooms now in late March, early April. Keep in mind, we're about a week, 10 days early this year because of the mild winter. So some of these blooms are happening a little sooner than they would otherwise, okay? So the Andromedas are great. The dwarf and the compact means they won't grow to a mature size of the straight species. And while I'm at it, I just wanted to let everybody know, if you have problems with deer, Andromeda is one of the plants that deer will not touch, okay? So I have not seen them browse. I've had people tell me they got eaten. I have a really hard time believing that. I mean, 35 years, I've never seen one browsed by a deer, okay? The other plant that deer will not touch is boxwood, okay? Now, boxwoods, I get mixed responses when I recommend a boxwood. This is a dwarf variety. It's low growing and mounding. It's called Franklin's Gem. We also use Tide Hill. So they're more of a spreading boxwood. You can use them in hedges. You can use them as a specimen. But the deer resistance is huge. And, you know, there's 100 varieties of boxwoods, and different forms, different textures, some variegation. So boxwood is a good choice if you have a problem with deer. Finally, I want to wrap up. These are shade-tolerant evergreens for the gardens, okay? This is called, it's skipping my mind. Skimmia, thank you. It has beautiful fragrant flowers. These will bloom a little bit later in April. Nice glossy foliage. You have to be careful with your watering on this. If you have an irrigation head next to this, it will not survive that. You have to hand water till it gets acclimated, and then once it is acclimated, just really cut back on the watering. There's really no need to water this. They do not like wet feet. Real quick, a question came up yesterday. People decided they didn't want to start yet because the irrigation isn't on. We've had very good precipitation through the month of March. There's more than adequate soil moisture right now. Do not wait to plant, okay? Now listen, if you're not ready, you're not ready. We get it, right? The sooner you plant, the more time your plant has to get acclimated before summer. New plants struggle in the summer months. Lack of rainfall, high temperatures, so they need your care and assistance in the summer months. So the sooner you plant, the more root system is going to be developed going into summer, and the better successes you're going to have. We'll talk to you more about that as you get ready to do some plant selection and plantings. But I wanted to emphasize, you do not need irrigation currently. In fact, it's not a good idea to start watering yet, because this is when fungal pests are active. And the more you water, if you get foliage on your plants as they're pushing out new growth, that's they're very vulnerable to infection at this time of year. So if you're adding water to it, it's like adding fuel to the fire. So you can watch for my email that's going to be coming out talking about that a little bit further. So listen, I'm really ready to look forward to seeing you in the garden.